What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? I would like to welcome you back to the Real Talk with Zuby podcast. Now, on today's episode, I've got on a good friend of mine. This is Hafeez from the very popular Roommates podcast and YouTube channel. Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
Yo, what's good, Zuby? So I want to let the people know I'm not multitasking. So what's going to happen is my camera is up here, Zuby's down there. So sometimes I'm going to be looking between the two. I don't want people to think I'm multitasking through tonight's conversation. But nah, man, super excited, man. No, Zuby, I have nothing but love for you, man. Brother from another mother, man. And so, when he told me that you're going to bring me on the podcast, man, I really couldn't wait. I think we're going to have great conversation. And I'm just really excited to meet your audience and also the audience that rocks with me as well.
No doubt, bro. 100%, man. So I've done a super brief intro there, man. But for people who are not familiar with you or your show, tell the people a little bit about you.
No problem. So my name is Hafeez. I created one of the co-creators of a brand. We call it a brand now called The Roommates. And the goal of The Roommates is to help men become the best version of themselves, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. I've basically dedicated my whole life since I was 19 years old to helping improve men's lives. I was a teacher, I was a filmmaker, I was a videographer, I was an author, I was many things, but settled into the content creation space because to me, it was probably the best vehicle in regards to creating content. And so, have been doing the podcast for the past 4 years and been on YouTube as such. And so one of the things that we like to do, we like to travel the country, interviewing different thought leaders and entrepreneurs. We believe in a diversity of thought. So we talk to, the likes of Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, but then on the flip side, we talk to guys like Charlamagne the God, D.L. Hughley, Hassan Minaj. So we like to talk to people on both ends of the political, social, economic, ideological spectrum. And so that's just basically what we do. And we like to have a lot of fun and, share good information to the people.
That's awesome, man. And what was it that made you actually want to get into that space and start a podcast and a YouTube channel? I mean, it's something that a lot of people talk about, but a lot of people don't actually do it. So what was it that made you go, you know what, let's create something here?
In 2012, me and my friends created a YouTube series called the Real Talk series, where basically I wanted to address relevant issues that were going on with men's lives. But at that time in 2012, from my experience, I wasn't in film. I wasn't in, I didn't understand camera equipment. So it cost me about $1,300 to produce and publish that series on YouTube. And for me, as a recent college student, that was a ton of money. Yeah. So I realized it wasn't sustainable. So I started blogging online. After blogging for an extended period of time, writing wasn't my thing. I did it but writing wasn't my thing. And one of my friends created a podcast at that time. And I got on the podcast and I just loved the podcast format. I even thought I wanted to do radio. And so fast forward, I became a teacher for a couple of years, did a bunch of other things. And then when I moved to Houston in 2016, I was hanging out with my guy, Chris, Sam, and a bunch of the guys in the house. And I was like, man, I've always wanted to start a podcast and I've always wanted to just create more content. And I felt like, the conversation we were having in the house needed to be had in the real world. And so that's when we eventually connected with one another. And then I said, let's start a podcast. And we did. January 7th, 2017, we launched our first episode, The Roommates. I found a audio producer, audio engineer to come over our house and we recorded. And we've been going, 4 years strong ever since.
Awesome, man. That's dope. That's super inspiring, man. I mean, when did I think the first podcast I listened to of yours was actually the one with Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been a bit over 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
A bit over 2 years ago. So that was kind of like the first one I saw it. I think it was recommended to me on YouTube. Yeah. And I watched that. And then lo and behold, not so long later, I ended up on the show, and I also ended up on Ben Shapiro's show.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. Yeah, it's funny how these things work. So I'm curious to go backwards a little bit. We'll talk more about the stuff you're doing now, but I'm curious to find out more about your background and your growing up and all of that. So where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's the life story leading to where you are now?
So my name is Hafeez Baoku. So I'm Yoruba, American. I was born in Staten.
I was going to say, are we going to compete for the most African name?
Zuby, nobody can compete with you for the most African name. To make that clear. And so I was born in Staten Island, New York, and so being born in New York, especially in Staten Island, is a unique experience because, like diversity is a real thing. And like I said, I don't want people to be too triggered because some people hear the word diversity and they start losing their minds, But and I mean by diversity of just everything, ideas, religions, social economic background. So when I went to school, I had friends who were Puerto Rican, friends who were Irish, friends who were Polish. My next door neighbor was Puerto Rican, and I think their father was Polish, and so I was just used to being around different people. I was never in a monolithic environment. So when I was growing up as a kid, I did everything. I watched Pokemon, I watched Dragon Ball Z, I watched Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what I mean? I also played basketball, played football. I traded Magic the Gathering, and you know what I mean, and all these other things. I played MMORPGs like RuneScape. I was a gamer, playing Madden, Super Smash. So like my background growing up was I was always around a diverse group of people, and so I felt like that made me a bit of a chameleon, where I could honestly be in any environment, And so eventually I played high school football. So that kind of gave me, the more jock, kind of background for that. And I got a football scholarship to play Division II football, Wingate University. After that, I transferred to Troy University to play Division I football there. And when I was 19 years old, I became a Christian. When I became a Christian, everything changed. It was like Neo in the Matrix. I just saw the zeros and the ones. And I'll kid you not, Zuby, like people don't believe this, but I got way smarter. Like a lot of people.
What do you mean by that?
Like for some reason, it was like the way, if you read Paul's story in the book of Acts, when he talks about how when he had that road to Damascus experience and how there's like a new revelation that was revealed to him. To me, I started picking up concepts easier, like ideas, stories, narratives, everything became easier to me. So I was able to retain information a lot better. I was able to process and synthesize information a lot better. And so when eventually I got to that point where I was so consumed with just like helping people and sharing and teaching and educating, where I actually stopped playing football. I believe I was 20 years old. When I retired from the football team. And so yeah, that's my background, And so on the football team, very similar stories. I was a guy that was cool with everybody. I was cool with, the hood players who came from, project, but I was also cool with the country boys from in Alabama who came from the farms. And so, it was never like a sense of like, trying to appease anybody or trying to, pander, just who I was. Like, there's a general human, like everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants decency. So I think I'm just a person who gives everybody that. I just naturally connect with people because of it.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome, man. And although I grew up in other side of the world, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, I feel like my experience was very similar in that regard in terms of true diversity. So from a very young age, just being surrounded by everybody, of course, growing up in a, 99.9% Muslim country, but then being in an expat community, surrounded by Americans, Canadians, British people from Africa, South America, other parts of the Middle East, just everywhere. So with me, I think that really, to this day, I think it's massively shaped the way I view the world, and I'm able to sort of relate to people, and just having that perspective on things. I'm really curious as to how you became a Christian, given that happened at 19. What was the story there?
Yeah, man. So long story short, I transferred to Troy University, and I thought I was going to be playing football that first semester, and it turns out I received bad information. I couldn't play football the first semester. So that first semester, I was really down. I was really depressed. I was really out of it. I just gave up on just anything social. All I did was focus on school. And I was staying in one of the really janky dorm rooms. And then following the second semester, when I transferred to Detroit, my second semester, my sophomore year, one of my friends from Wingate, my first college, had transferred to Troy. And I was like, oh, that's super dope. Like now I have a friend. I didn't really have any friends at Troy. And so one day I was walking down the hallway, and I saw, because that guy, his name was Will. Will was my roommate. And I saw that Will's name was on someone else's door.
Okay.
I was like, that's kind of weird. Why is his name on someone else's door? So it turned out that Will was placed in two different rooms.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so I kind of like told her, yo, you're in this room. And so long story short, there was a bunch of like mix up, and so Will had to stay in that room
Okay.
before we could like get our own room together.
Gotcha.
And while he was in this room, there was this guy named Zacchaeus who had like a Bible study, and every single week he would invite Will to it. And Will would tell me about it, and I wasn't a Christian. I didn't really believe in all that stuff, or wasn't interested. I was just trying to get laid and have fun, And so I was just like, no, I'm not going to Bible study. That's not my thing. I'm not really interested in it. And like Zacchaeus kept on asking us every single week. And then one day I was like, you know what? Haven't been to church in like 6 months. Let me just go to Bible study. Let me just give it a chance. Went to Bible study that first day, and that's where I met my first mentor, Zach Markham. And Zach Markham was this country white boy from Kentucky who just loved black people, man. he just loves. I call him the Black Whisperer, man. Like he is a Black Whisperer. I'm serious, man. There's something about him. He's just so. No offense to anybody. He's just so white, but he's just so relatable. It's like, and that's why I hate pandering, because you can be yourself and still be relatable. Yeah. And so Zach, it was one white guy leading the Bible study, and just like 15 other black guys. I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I never this is odd to me. And I was just intrigued, man, just by the message of, the difference between, religion and relationship, difference between following and being lukewarm. Like, it was all intriguing to me. And after going to the Bible study for 4 weeks, I just said, yo, I want to go 100% into this walk with God thing.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. That's powerful, man. That's really powerful. Yeah. So fast forwarding a little bit to starting up the podcast and the YouTube channel. I mean, people can go on there now and see, you've got well over 200,000 subscribers. The videos are getting a lot of views. Things are growing. You're getting all these big guests and stuff like that. But as a fellow creative person, as a fellow entrepreneur, I know that there's a lot of grind behind everything. People just see the surface level. And by the time people start to pay attention and notice, that's normally when you've already done, the 90% of the work that they're not seeing. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about the sort of uphill journey there.
Let me tell you a story. Started a podcast in January 7, 2017. The audience was majority women because it was Chris's friends. So let's say it was like 80% women at that time. And you can obviously tell they did not like me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not at all.
Oh, that's funny.
And so I think our opening episode, we opened with 150 listens.
Yeah.
November 2017, we're at 70.
Okay.
I was depressed. So I hate going backwards, I hate regression. So I remember talking to my friend Sam, one of our co-hosts at that time. I was like, yo, we suck. Like, we just like, how do we go backwards so badly? Yeah. And Sam was like, yo, we need to just give up. He said, we just need to do this for fun. Like, we're probably not good at this. Yeah. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So the next day, I listened to an interview on The Breakfast Club with Gary Vee. And it was my first interview listen to Gary Vee talk. And just something about this man was just so inspiring to me. Yeah. I was like, man, I love this guy, Gary Vee. Yeah. And then I got his book after listening to him talk called
Which one? Crush It? Okay.
Yeah, I got the audio book for Crush It. That book changed my life, man.
Okay.
It changed my life. It lit a fire in me because Gary's basic premise was, if you want to live a 1% life, you have to do 1% work. And if you're not willing to do 1% work, don't complain about that you're not living a 1% life. Yep. And so I literally took every single message that Gary Vee said, and I started going 110% into the podcast. There was a time where for 6 months, I was on Twitter every day for, I'm not going to lie to you, Zuby, for at least 16 hours a day.
Wow.
So while I was working my 9-to-5 job, I had another tab of Twitter. Okay. And I had 20 tabs open. And if you go to search.twitter.com, I'm not sure if it's still there or not, but you can search keywords. So I would search podcast recommendation, podcast suggestion, looking for new podcasts, wanting new podcasts, need new podcasts, podcast help, podcast in Houston, want new podcasts, Gary Vee. I had all these tabs open. And whenever somebody tweeted looking for a new podcast or any iteration of it, I responded.
Okay, interesting.
So I did that literally. I would work my job, come back home, and go on the internet all day long.
Just grind.
Just grinding, man.
Yeah.
And long story short, then eventually what happened was, I started getting different guests. I went from 75 listens in November to like 400 in January. And for me, that was huge.
Yeah.
And that was like huge. That was like what, multiply that by 5. And so I was just super excited about it. And then eventually, kept on growing, kept on getting different guests, more local guests. And then I also was like, obviously I was reaching out to everybody in the Gary Vee community. I had Gary Vee's like name on the search tab. And I was always following. Whenever Gary Vee tweeted, I would always read it. I would always respond to everybody who was talking on it. And then one day Gary Vee tweeted he was going to be in Houston. And I was like, I have to get him on the podcast. And he was like, yo, if you're an entrepreneur in Houston, reach out to me.
Okay.
And I reached out to him, like blowing him up, no response.
Yeah.
Then I think it was like maybe a month before he's about to get to Houston, because he's coming to Houston for the Super Bowl in February. And then it's probably like a couple of weeks before he got to Houston. And then all of a sudden I was like, yo, I got to try one more time. So I reached out to one of Gary Vee's guys. It was like, yo, I've been reaching out to Gary. He said, if you're in Houston looking to connect, I have a podcast. I love him on the podcast. He said, let me see what I can do for you guys. Eventually said, you know what? Hey, man, I'm sorry. Gary Vee's jam-packed. This, that, and the third. He can't come on your podcast.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So it was like February, probably 8th, 2018. And I remember I'm sitting at the house going on Twitter, and I see Gary Vee tweet coming live from so-and-so's podcast. And I was like, God dang it. You know what I mean? I was like, mad. Why can't he be on my podcast?
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on, wait. I think today's the day he's supposed to be in Houston.
Okay.
I said, do not tell me he's on a podcast and someone. So there was a link to the podcast, and I was watching it. He was in Houston.
Yeah.
And I was like, God dang it. Like, that's not fair,
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, what if I could just find where this podcast is at and just pull up on him?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, let me do some digging around.
Yeah.
So out of every podcast in America, this was the only podcast that I knew of that launched a podcast and a store at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So basically, the couple, shout out Hunter Pence, he's a professional baseball player, and his wife Lexi, they opened a store in Houston, and they created a podcast studio in the back.
Okay.
So on the website for their podcast was linked to their store, and on the Twitter bio for the store was their address.
Wow. Okay.
So I went to Chris, my roommate the roommate, like my co-host at the time, we live in the same neighborhood. I was like, yo, I think I know where Gary Vee is. He was like, are you 100% sure? I said, I think I know. He said, what are we waiting for? So we drove in the car. It's like 12 o'clock at night. Wow. We drove to this abandoned part of town. It's being gentrified and whatnot. And I was like, oh crap, I blew it. Gary's not here. Like, it's like an abandoned, wasteland. But then right before we left, I looked in the corner of this window and I saw this bright light. I was like, hold on, wait 1 second. I got out of the car. I looked through the window. I saw Gary Vee. So,
okay.
Literally, I was outside. It's funny. Chris actually had this all on Snapchat. He recorded all this stuff.
Yeah.
I was outside and we were waiting for Gary Vee for 2 hours.
Wow.
I was just sitting outside waiting, preparing mentally. I'm like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Gary Vee comes outside. I walk up to Gary. I'm like, yo, Gary, I love you, man. You changed my life. You're so amazing. I just want you on my podcast. Give me 10 minutes. Just please, Gary. And Gary Vee, sometimes you can look into a person's eyes and see how genuine they are. Yeah. Gary Vee was one of the most genuine human beings I've ever met in my life. Gary Vee said, you know what? I'm going to come on your podcast tomorrow. I almost did a backflip.
Dope.
He said, yo, get my videographer's number. We're going to set it up. Yeah. I was on cloud 100,000.
Yeah.
The next day I woke up, texted the videographer, said, hey, you know what? When do you want me to come to Gary's, maybe hotel room and record? No response.
Yeah.
A couple of hours later, hey, just following up, no response.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I get a response at 4 o'clock saying, hey, Gary got invited to go watch the Super Bowl. And I think it was at Minnesota that year.
Oh, gosh.
He's being flown out to Minnesota. So he can't do the podcast today.
Oh, no.
Bro, I was devastated.
Oh, man.
I was so devastated. You said, but Gary said he's going to do it. He's going to do it. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be this year.
Yeah.
But he'll do it.
Okay.
I literally followed up with him every single day. I think at one point the guy blocked me. and then so I think it was like in May, I reached out to the original guy who I talked to when, I was first trying to get in contact with Gary. And I was like, yo, Gary said he's going to come on the podcast. Like, is he have any availability in June? I would just love to get him on. So I've been trying for the past couple of months. And all of a sudden he was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what I can do for you.
Yeah.
He said, June 23rd, can you be in New York City? I said, I'm there.
Yep.
June 23rd, I remember I was in Gary Vee's office setting up. I had Eminem, I think it's like Lose Control, whatever that song is. You better
lose yourself.
Lose yourself in the moment.
Yeah.
I had it playing in the background. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Opportunity comes once in a life. I was just playing it. Gary pulls up. You know what I mean? And that was like one of the most epic moments of my life, recording in Gary Vee's studio.
Sick.
And ever since then, I just went off. I just went and just grinded and just got different people. And then, you know what I mean? Then eventually, I think it was like August of last year. That's when, the floodgates really, broke. And that's when the podcast really started taking off.
Awesome, man. That's phenomenal. There's a lot of lessons in that story there for anyone who's paying attention, anyone who's starting a business, anyone who's an entrepreneur, or just going for anything in life, man. You have to persevere. You have to persevere. You got to always keep moving forward. You're going to get knocked back, over and over and over again. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get denied. Like before I really starting to make, decent money online and doing some of the other things now, like with my book and my podcast and all that. I mean, I initially just built up my name by traveling around the UK, hustling my CDs on the street, selling my CDs on the street, and then eventually moving into shopping malls. And, as a totally independent artist, I've sold when I tell people I've sold over 25,000 albums independently, wow. People are like, how did you do that? Yeah. And I'm like, I spoke to 300,000 people. Literally, face to face, hand to hand. I sold 25,000 albums by talking to, I spoke to, 300,000 people, and this many of them said no. 250,000 of them said no, but 25,000 plus said yes. Yeah. So that's how I've done it. And it's really interesting because, people see things now and they don't necessarily know the story behind it all. So definitely. I think that's super duper inspiring.
Thank you, man.
What was the catalyst last year for things to really sort of blow up? Was it a particular episode, or was it
like
something?
4 things happened at once.
Okay.
So what happened was I brought Alpha Male Strategies on the podcast, a very controversial Alpha Male Strategies. Mm-hmm. Shout out to AMS. I brought him on the podcast. And so Alpha Male Strategies obviously has a predominantly male audience. Mm-hmm. Then I had a clip from a very popular women's dating coach named Sham Booty.
Oh, yeah.
That clip, I put it out, and all of a sudden it started blowing up. Mm-hmm. It went from like 4,000 views to like 100,000 in a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that happened. Then I had another clip from a woman named Mary Jo Rapini, mm-hmm. That went from 3,000 views to 100,000 views as well.
Okay.
And then I had maybe it was the Ben Shapiro clip was grown before that. Yeah. There was another clip I forgot. So it's like 4 videos just all of a sudden just took off, literally simultaneously of each other. It was kind of weird. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I went from a good week of subscriber growth at that time. A great week was like 1,000 subscribers. That's a great week.
Yeah.
And eventually we're averaging like 10,000 a week.
Wow.
And so we went from 80,000 subscribers in August mm-hmm. to 200,000 in November.
Wow. Oh, yeah. That's phenomenal. I mean, I think, wow, I didn't know it was that fast. I mean, I saw some of that happening, but whoa, I didn't know it was quite that fast.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was crazy.
That's crazy, man. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you talk about in your show, and that I know that is important to you and that you focus on. And one of these key things, of course, is masculinity and being a man in society, becoming a high value man in every sense of the word, becoming a man of character, all of that. And I think we've both observed a lot that there's a lot of weird stuff going on in society, a lot of weird stuff. But I think one of the big ones is that I think both men and women have been manipulated a lot over the course of decades, really. And we're in this stage where I think a lot of men for sure don't really know what, there's sort of a crisis of masculinity. You know, people don't know. If you go back in time, or even if you go to other countries, I think the role of a man is very clear, and even the role of a woman is sort of a lot more clear. But due to a whole bunch of factors right now, a lot of young guys in particular, this is a little bit rudderless and directionless, and they don't really know where to fit in and how to behave. So number one, do you sort of agree with that observation? And how do you think we kind of got here?
No, that's a fantastic observation, Zuby, because it's 100% true. I think people who are oblivious and who live by these, these postmodern neo-Marxist identity, politics ideologies will disagree with it. But it's a reality. There is a crisis when it comes to masculinity, and you see it. Men and women feel it.
Yes.
Society feels it. And so, like I said, we'll obviously get more in depth later. But to answer the latter question of how do we get here, it's a combination of things. If I'm being honest, this is what I've realized, and this is let me tell you my theories and what I know to be fact. Okay. Here's the theory. The theory is when you look in the Bible, you see whenever God gives somebody an opportunity to wield power, and power is not bad, but to wield power to lead and to help people, whenever they abuse that power, there's always negative consequences that become accrued on this individual. Just straight up generation curses. Like, for example, like the house of David was always going to have trauma because of the decisions that David made. And so there are things that are happening where if the leaders don't take responsibility, there's going to be a consequence for it. So there's a lot of things that men in power, not all men, let's clarify, men in power did that was wrong to women. Like women not being able to own property was wrong.
Yeah.
Women not being able to vote was wrong. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the things were wrong. And so a lot of women were hurt because of these men in power.
Yes.
And what we end up doing is we end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And we end up, because of our, more, primitive brains, we group things together, sorry, let me go on a tangent real quick. Like with mushrooms, mushrooms aren't dangerous. But because there's dangerous mushrooms, we fear all mushrooms as a whole. It's a way of our brains like kind of protecting us from certain things.
Sure.
So the same thing happens with men. Men aren't evil. Men aren't bad. Some men do bad. Some men do evil. Some men abuse their power. Some men abuse their wives. Some men abuse their children. Some men take advantage of authority that they have. And so what happens is now there is a view of men being the bad guy.
Yes.
So when you see, some of the more positive movements of, early feminism in the early 19th, 20th century, some of the positivity, it's began to change with the second wave feminism, and it became more anti-man.
Yes.
Because everything bad became equated with male. And then eventually, nowadays it's white male. Yep. And so one of the things that I realized is some of the attacks on masculinity happen because a lot of people are trying to throw the baby out with the bathwaters. A lot of people have been hurt by some of the things that men have done and some of the things that men have failed to do. And so therefore, now the blame has been put on men. And now, therefore, they're trying to create a new man, right? So the old man was bad. The masculine man, that man of old was bad. He was an evil, abusive drunk who beat his wife and neglected his children. So let's create a new man in the image and likeness that we desire. You know what I mean? And so that's what has happened when it comes to modern masculinity. And on the flip side, the world has been changing.
Yes.
In a hunter-gatherer society, men flourish.
Yes.
In a service-based society, men do not flourish. Mm-hmm. They do not flourish.
Yeah.
When you start automating society, I'm not against automation, but a lot of men suffer because of it. You gotta remember, most men throughout history were soldiers. That's what they did. They fought in wars. That was their purpose. That was what they did. That's all. It's really their skills. So now as society begins to evolve, especially when it comes to education, especially modern education, which is totally geared towards more feminine style of learning, men fail. And so you have all these different things. I can go on for days about the different variables that go on, but these different things create now this, like I said, an distrust in the idea of a masculine man, and now a renewed neo man that has risen from the feminine mystique. And now this man is weak. This man is feeble, and this man is someone that men don't aspire to be, and definitely women don't aspire to be with.
Which is the ironic part of that theory. This new man who's been created is not what is sort of what people are even striving for, and certainly not what most women are even attracted to. You know, maybe there's a minority who are, but in general, that's not really the archetype that they're interested in. And then I think on the flip side of that, as a result, you get men, because I often say that men are reactionary, right? I think certainly when it comes to what people refer to as the sexual marketplace, right? Men are reactionary. I always say that, you know, really women run the show in that department.
100%.
Really, right? Women run the show. Women sort of set the standards, and then men will adapt their behavior to meet whatever those standards at the time and in that place are. Because ultimately women are the gatekeepers to sex and relationships, right? So it's a funny one, because then you get guys who, I mean, this is where the whole, you know, some people may be familiar with the term red pill or the manosphere or whatever, right? And that's where that whole world even comes in, because men are like, okay, wait, hang on. The stuff that worked for my granddad or maybe my father in this modern Western world, in the UK, in the USA, and Canada, this, you know, be a nice guy and buy flowers and, you know, the traditional courtship thing, this doesn't seem to be working for me. And then they're looking on social media and they're like, wait, hang on, like, you know, the guys who seem to be getting attention from the women, they don't seem to be, you know, just the nice guys or whatever. But then you also get the overcompensation.
Yes.
So now you kind of have like this sort of dichotomy of men where, you know, of course you've got people in the middle, but there is a lot of polarization where on one hand you've got the sort of like very, you know, the sort of beta male simp kind of like just groveling to women, and, you know, I'm just going to go on her Instagram and leave like love hearts all over her things, and I'm going to, you know, and it's not working, but I'm going to do all this, right? I'm just going to basically worship women and grovel towards them, and, you know, maybe throw male feminist in my Twitter bio. And then you've also got like a kind of extreme on the other end where it's like, oh, okay, like it's like mercenary, right? It's like you've taken too many red pills. Like now it's just like you've almost just kind of become like the sort of opposite of all of this, where it's going too far. So what I love about you know, what you're doing and what I'm trying to do as well is bring people to that middle, you know. Yes. There's a middle ground here where you don't need to go full on MGTOW, you know, screw marriage, screw relationships, you know, all women are the same, all women are like this, and you just get so into that side. But then also you don't want to be on that flip side where someone's just, you know, sitting there watching Pornhub all day and, you know, like, you know, and doesn't know how to doesn't know how to communicate, or doesn't know what it takes to even just be a moderately attractive man, you know, maximize their own 100%. Appearance and physicality and finances and all that. And I love that you speak about all this stuff very openly on your channel. It must be making a massive difference out there.
No, definitely it is, man, because I think, like you said, a lot of guys always tell me, this is the most recurring message, is that I was hurt.
Yes.
I felt like society failed me. Mm-hmm. I got very angry. I found red pill content. I got even more angrier.
Red
I
pill
found
rage.
you. I found peace.
Yes. Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to me, I get so many emails, DMs, similar to what you get every single day from men all around the world whose lives are being transformed. And like I said, and I keep on using the word diversity, not to meet a color quota, but to show that truth transcends everything. You know what I mean? Truth transcends everything. And so it's all kinds of guys, white males from Kentucky, Arabic males from freaking Saudi Arabia, Asian men from Taiwan, you know what I mean? It's all kinds of guys, from Canada, UK, Peru. It's all men around the world who are resonating with the message because that's what they long for. Because like I said, a lot of people don't know how the world changed.
Yes.
See, the world changed. Instagram is changing the world.
It really is.
The world that your parents grew up in is not the world that you're growing up in today.
Yep.
Think about it right now, Zuby. How old were you when you got your first Instagram account?
How old was I when I got my Instagram account?
Yeah.
I've been on Instagram since, I want to say 2014.
2014. So is that safe to say 7 years ago?
Yeah.
So think about it like this. The girls who are 18 years old right now have been on Instagram since they were 11 years old.
Yep.
11 years old.
Crazy. Yeah.
This is all they've known.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to use Bane's terminology, you know what I mean? We adapted to the darkness. We were born in it, molded by it. You know what I mean? Like that's literally what's going on. Like it's changing the world. And on top of that, a lot of the feminist ideologies are changing women.
Yes.
And women are suffering because of it. There's a whole generation of Generation X and latter millennials who are suffering because of this whole career first, don't need a man mentality has now gotten them in their later to mid 30s, single, lonely, and wanting a family and not having the tools to get one. So
and trying to pretend that they're happy about it.
And trying to pretend when they're happy about it, but deep down inside, they know that the reason why they're always drinking wine and, you know what I mean, and watching, Netflix all the time because they're just lonely. Yeah. And the reason why they're buying all these dogs and puppies is because they just want affection and attention and somebody to love. Yeah.
Dog mom should not be a thing.
It's not ever a thing. You're a girl and you have dog mom in your bio. Go ahead and not send me. I'm sending that to you. I'm sending to me.
It shouldn't be a thing.
And so to me, the impact is real because people are being affected by it. Yeah. Like people are really being affected by what is going on in society. By these unhealthy messages, by the like you said, by the crisis on masculinity and femininity. That's what we don't talk about as well. Femininity is under attack because femininity is being perceived as weakness. Yes. And women are thinking that if I am feminine, I am weak, therefore I need to be masculine. Yep. But if you are a woman and you're living with your masculine energy, yes, it helps you in the workplace to an extent. But it totally hinders you in the dating marketplace because now you don't have the opposite energy to attract the masculine man. Yes. And so, man, it's just a lot of things that a lot of people are suffering, but a lot of people are experiencing healing and transformation because they're finally receiving good information that's going to be beneficial to their everyday lives. Yeah, most definitely, man. The world is it's really complicated. I think the modern West I feel like in many ways, of course, society has moved forward in many, many ways over the course of decades, right? If you're looking at any type of most sort of isms or phobias are at an all-time low, which is great, right? There was a time where myself or yourself, whether in the UK or in the USA, people would just look at us and, a lot of people would treat us badly simply because of what we look like and our ethnic origin, right? Which is screwed up. So awesome. Like we are well past that. People aren't, gay people aren't being beaten up in the street anymore. Women aren't being subjugated or, all that kind of stuff. But I think when it comes to some other aspects, certainly in the last 10 or 15 years, I think we've seen a regression. 100%. I think when it comes to purpose, meaning, people, you can tell it. I posted this morning. Do you know the number one killer of both men and women under the age of 35 in the UK? What is it?
Suicide.
Wow.
number one killer of people aged 20 to 34 in the UK, both men and women, is suicide. Leading killer of men under 50, suicide, right? And those numbers are going up. And it's like, for number one, we don't talk about this. It's a very taboo subject. But that to me it's screaming like this is a crisis of meaning, right? People's meaning, people's purpose, people feeling like they have a place in the world and something positive to aspire to and a support system and all of that stuff. I'm like, yo, this is clearly a crisis. People are here talking about, COVID and whatever. I'm like, yo, more people are dying of suicide. More young people are dying of suicide right now and have been than of COVID, right? But you can talk about COVID all day long. Like that's popular. But I'm like, yo, sure, older people are dying of that. Sure. But like more young people are dying of suicide. And then you exacerbate that with these lockdowns in the UK. We're still on lockdown out here, bro. Still, like we're a year into this. People are still here just sitting at home. And I'm just like, this is a disaster because we were already on this road. Yeah. And there was already this crisis of meaning. And, I think that's why, people like ourselves are on a larger scale. Someone like Jordan Peterson. I think if Jordan Peterson came out, in the public 15 years ago, even, I think it would have been considered fairly mundane what he's saying.
100%.
Right. But in 2016, 2017, 2018, it's like, whoa, this is powerful. This is so necessary that people have such a hunger, such a desire for just honesty and explanation. And so, just telling it how it is, talking about purpose, talking about meaning, talking about responsibilities. We want to talk about rights. I have the right to do this. I have the right to do that. I have the right. It's like, yeah, well, what about the responsibility? What responsibilities come with those rights? If you're a man, if you're a woman, you're just a member of our society. What's your purpose, right? What's the value that you're adding? Yeah, sure, you can take this and you can take that and you can take that and you can take that and you can do what you want and, try to deny all your responsibility. But like, what is your responsibility, right? If you've got children, what are you doing leaving them? Why are you wilding out in the nightclub when your kids are at home? It's like, what's going on here? So there's not really a question. There's not even a question there, man. That was just a little rant on my part, but yeah, man, feel free to add to it.
Yeah, man. No, I agree with you 100%, man, because I think people, as I get older, I had all these sayings back in the day that I just lost nowadays. But I used to always say people view human history as a linear line of progression.
Yes.
I view the opposite. I view human history as a circle.
Okay.
And every step forward is really a step backwards. Because every step forward, you forget the previous step you just took. So then you start making the same mistakes. So, for example, a lot of people look at certain things and like, okay, let me give you an example. It's the year 3000 and flying cars failed, right?
Okay.
And like, you know what? We have too much accidents, too much disasters. Flying cars have failed. Let's create cars again for land cars. So they want to create now tires for these land cars. Yeah. And somebody says, let's create tires like squares. Someone says, let's create tires like triangles.
Yeah.
So say, let's create tires like rectangles. And someone's like, well, back in the day, there were circles, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no. That was then back then. I don't know why they did it back then. Now we're evolved. We're modern. We can do it better.
Yep.
And every single thing fails. And they don't understand that back in the day, another dummy like you thought the same thing. And through trial and error, they realized that the circular tire was the most efficient way of transporting an object.
Yep.
So what ends up happening is that we forget some of the rules that were established in the past weren't set up to establish a male patriarchy or to establish oppression, but they tried other things. They found this was the most effective and they applied it to everyday life.
Yeah.
That's why it is. That's why some traditions were what they were. Some of them are bad and unhealthy, but some of them are also good and beneficial.
Yes.
And so in modernity, with critical theory, everything is questioned.
Yes.
Everything is trying to be replaced. Everything is like, why this? Why that? Why can't a man wear a dress? Why can't a man do this? Why can't a man do like you're trying to redo things that people probably tried 10,000 years ago and it didn't work. But because you have what C.S. Lewis calls chronological snobbery, and you look back to the people of the past, you think that somebody you're better than them, you end up making the same mistakes in the present.
Most def, man. Most def. Nailed it. Yeah, I love the fact that you said chronological snobbery because I love that term. It's a brilliant term. Yeah, dude, that literally nails it. And yeah, it's a weird one. I often say that, I mean, if you think about it, I don't know. The 1800s was only 2 people ago, right? So when you hear the 1800s, it sounds like it's a really long time, but I'm like, that's 2 people. That's 2 people, not even 2 full lifetimes, right? Just going back, even if you go back to the 1500s, I mean, the 1500s, that's only, how many people is that? That's like 7, 8 people ago, right? We are not any more advanced as a species as people were in the 1500 or in 1200 or whatever. We just have more stuff. We just have better stuff. We have better tech. Right. So we have built on the past to some degree, but we are the same emotional, irrational, silly people. Like we're the same thing. And it's interesting because a lot of everything just manifests in different ways. So, and I think that's been one of the most fascinating things about the past year is we have seen every sort of type of individual and collective human psychological phenomenon taking place, right? And it's just a split along different lines. So, okay, maybe over in this part of the world or over in history, maybe people were fighting about this religious ideology or this tribal, or along these tribal lines, or about this piece of land or over this political ideology or whatever. And now it's like, well, we're still doing some of those things, but the lines just change. Right now, you have the maskers versus the anti-maskers. You have the pro-vaccination people, and then most people aren't even anti-vaxxing, but people will label each other with these things. People are still on the black and white nonsense, men versus women, red versus blue, this versus that. It's like people can be tribal over anything. I mean, you see it in sports. Yeah. Right. You see it in sports. I mean, one of the things I've always found bewildering my whole life is I think it's less of a thing in the States, but in the UK and other parts of Europe, like football hooliganism, right? Like people who are so into their football or soccer team that like they will go out and fight and beat people up and murder people over, like they're not even the players. Right? Like, you like this sports team and I like this one, so we are mortal enemies. It's on sight when I see you because you like this, like. Even as a kid, I was like, "What is up with that?" Like I was looking at stories. Oh, someone got murdered in a football hoop. I'm like, what do you mean someone got killed over, like they were wearing the wrong scarf or the wrong like T-shirt? I'm like, yo, humans are crazy. Like, I'm like, humans are crazy, man. Humans are crazy. So like, it's funny because I think we think we're really advanced, but when stuff hits the fan, or when there's like a problem or there's some confusion or whatever, you see just how rapidly. I mean, remember when everyone was buying toilet paper?
Yeah.
You can buy toilet paper because I was just like, humans are not rational. Humans are not. And why toilet paper? Like, why toilet paper? Of all the things
I'm not going to lie to you, Zuby. I actually disagree with you on this point.
Okay.
Toilet paper is an essential part of my life. It's an essential part of my life, Zuby.
We all need it, but you only need so much. You only need so much.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. I think that's just something that, I wish we can get better. That's why on the podcast, I just try to teach people how to listen to those who are different from them. That's my goal. I just try to teach people, you don't have to agree with them, have to believe in what they say, but just learn how to talk to people who are different from them because this tribal warfare will just get us all killed.
Yeah. For real, man. And I love that about the show, man. You guys get some really interesting guests and perspectives on, and it's always fun. It's always enlightening. And Why do you think it is that I mean, I have my ideas on this, but why do you think it is that so many people are so opposed to just conversation and listening, right? Like it seems like people don't want to. A lot of people don't want to. Like, people listen and seek content that they already agree with, and which amplifies already, doesn't challenge any of their beliefs or expose them even to just other ways of thinking, even if you're not going to agree with it. But just I find it bizarre, especially over the last 5 to 7 years. It seems like there's more people just not even wanting to have a conversation. Like, just having a conversation already is like, no, that's too far.
Two things come into the back of my mind. First is the demonization of the other side. See, when the other side is a demon, there's no rationalizing with the demon. It's like saying, okay, sit down with the devil and try to understand where he's coming from. You can't.
I'd love to do that. That would be a good podcast.
Napoleon Hill's book. What's that book called?
Oh, Outwitting the Devil?
Yes, Outwitting the Devil. That's a whole concept behind it.
Yeah.
So people have that ideology. And then on top of that, they view association means association equals acceptance. I had a better word, but I couldn't think of it right at the moment.
Agreement, maybe?
Yeah. It's like people think because you associate with this person, that means you believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if I listen to Ben Shapiro, I believe everything Ben Shapiro says. If I talk to Ben Shapiro, I am supporting Ben Shapiro, and therefore I'm a Ben Shapiro advocate, and now I'm a bad guy. So the first thing is that when you demonize the other team,
which is funny because he's such a nice guy.
I know he's such
a good dude.
Yeah, and so to me, when you demonize the other team, it makes it so easy for other people to now who are on your team to never associate with them and to become now hooligans who only want to fight them and kill them. And then the second thing is that I think a lot of people's beliefs are like their identity. Not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So anybody that's a different belief is kind of challenging your identity. So it's like, therefore, if I'm wrong, then I'm nothing.
Yes.
So you can never be right. I can never hear you. I cannot accept your truth because your truth is going to destroy my worldview and who I am as a person. And so when the stakes are that high, that's when then you have the liberalization of the American psyche and the Western psyche. So people are more coddled and more not as durable as before, and they're weaker.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you have people who have idea allergies.
Yes.
Where because they've been so live in these bubbles, they will literally die hearing somebody else with different ideas.
Yeah. I hear you totally. I think this is something where social media also has a lot to answer for. And part of the reason why I say that, beyond the algorithms, is because, and you especially see this on Twitter, because it destroys the order in which people normally naturally communicate. So normally, if you meet somebody in real life, you start with common ground. You start with getting to know. You don't start with with the biggest conflict or the most contentious or most controversial, most polarizing issue, right? You can go on Twitter and you can just see, okay, this person is like raging, like this person is like a super libertarian, and this person is a hardcore atheist. This person is like a Christian and a conservative. This person is like a liberal and a Democrat, and they hate Trump. Like people put it out there. Sometimes it's even in the bio. Their bio will tell you every single thing that they believe, right? Just straight up front. So whether you are inclined to agree with that type of person or disagree, we know how the human brain works, right? You rapidly create a caricature of that person, right? Like everyone does it. If I go on Twitter and I see a rainbow flag, BLM, he, him, hashtag resist and like a blue wave, I'm like, okay, this is like, I know exactly. I feel like I know exactly what I'm dealing with. If I go on and I see hashtag MAGA, hashtag keep America great, Trump 2024, America
amendment.
American flag. Yeah, exactly. Like don't try to, I know, again, I'm just like, okay, I know, Christian conservative patriot, right? It's like, and the thing is, so in Twitter world or social media world, these two people, like they cannot communicate, right? Wow. There's no way. But in real life, if these two people met in real life, just in anything, I don't know, at a sports game, at an event, in a restaurant, whatever, and they start with the normal sort of niceties and getting to know each other. Oh, hey, what's up, man? Yeah, this is my name. Oh, where are you from? Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, I've been there before. Like, oh, I've done this. Oh, you've got kids too. Yeah, I've got a daughter. People form all these common things. Maybe later down the line, you get into some heavier conversations. Mm. But by that point, you've already established a general likability and rapport and politeness and civility and all that. So I think a big reason why we're seeing this increasing polarization is because it's virtually, when people do that, it's virtually impossible to have that conversation. And also with something like Twitter, because you're just shouting random thoughts and opinions into an empty space, when people come across you, right? Like some people's, their first introduction to Zuby is like, oh, like, who is this? Yeah. Who is this guy? They're reading something like some edgy, some fiery tweet or opinion. And they're just like, whether they agree with me, if they agree with me, they might be like, yo, I love this guy. Like this. And someone else might read that and be like, oh my gosh, like this person is, this guy is, in my brain, in their brain, I'm some kind of demon. Like, I know I'm not a demon. But in their brain, they're just like, oh my gosh, like this guy is, and I think that's a big reason. And then people naturally gravitate into their echo chambers and stop communicating. And then it just gets worse, And I think that's how you ended up with these narratives like everyone who voted for Trump is racist. Everyone who voted for Brexit is racist. Yeah. Everyone who did like just these huge sweeping, very damning sort of condemnations of millions and millions and millions of people who actually you live next door to, and your kids are going to the same school, and they're your teachers, and they're the people who are helping you and serving you every day. Yeah. But, you go on that online world and it just, I think that's a big factor actually that people I don't think a lot of people really talk about.
I love that point. We talked about it previously, and it hit the nail on the head, and that's why, like I said, back in the day, there was this, unspoken political culture where you don't talk about religion, exactly, and politics. I didn't agree to that, but now I understand why. And so like I said, I have friends who are MAGA guys. Yeah. They're MAGA for life. Everything Trump does is literally like, the second coming of Christ. And I have friends who are never Trumpers. Yep. Every single tweet or post is about how bad of a person he is, and how Bernie's going to save our souls and all types of stuff. Yeah. And so not Bernie. What's my guy's name?
Biden.
Joe. Yeah.
Biden ain't saving anybody, but yeah.
And so, but like I said, but they're people to me. Yeah. They're people. I know them.
Yeah.
They have their beliefs. I have my beliefs. I believe a man got raised from the dead in 3 days. You know what I mean? Like, we all have our beliefs.
Yes.
And so it doesn't mean that we have to disrespect one another. Like I said, my name is Hafeez. It's Arabic. My dad is Muslim. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in a household, where, my dad had a different religion than I did. My dad's the greatest man on the planet Earth. So I just think there's a lot of nuance that's lost in the digital age, where if you just met people in everyday life, it'd be totally different.
I think also, human brains make shortcuts anyway, which is the result, which is how you even get lots of prejudices to begin with. But I think also another factor, just thinking about this on the social media one, is the sheer quantity. Like, you have to do shortcuts, right? You have hundreds of thousands of people following you. I have hundreds of thousands of people following me. And then you've just got billions of people on some of these platforms. Mm-hmm. So you almost have no choice but to run these little shortcuts in your brain just to put people in boxes. Okay, like these are the 10 type of people who exist online. Yeah. So, okay, which one are you? You're this, you're that. Okay, you're this, you're that. Oh, okay, these people are sort of my allies or my tribe. These people are my opponents. And you just kind of drop people in these boxes. And once someone is in that box, it's very hard for them to get out of it, even if they don't know they're in it. Even if they don't know they're in it, right? If someone just comes across me and decides, like, within 20 seconds, I don't like the Zuby guy, right? Then it becomes extremely hard for me to get out of that, and I'm not even aware that this is happening. I'm not even aware that it's happening, right? If I come across someone's profile, and we all do this, and then sometimes it gets reinforced, right? If I come across someone's profile, I see someone write some nonsense on Twitter. I go on the thing, they, them, hashtag this, hashtag. I'm like, oh gosh, like it's now extremely hard. Like it would be very hard for that person to ever convince me that they're not a weirdo.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've already just run that shortcut. I call it Zuby's razor, right? It's got a name. And I'm just already like, like if you have they, them in your bio, like we can't even talk. You know what I mean? Because like you're too far gone. But then they might look at me and be like, oh, like this guy's like, he's too far gone. Like he's look at his pinned tweet saying he identifies as a woman. Like, and it's a big one. So I think also just the sheer quantity, because we're not meant to be able to interact with so many people. We haven't evolved to do that.
And that's why, you're 100% right. We have not evolved to do that. I tell people that all the time. And that's why I personally don't. People are always like, Hafeez, why do you follow so little people on Instagram? I'm like, why do I need 500 people? That's going to mess up my brain. Yeah. I follow people I care about. I follow the people who I know. I follow people that, like, I'm not going through comments. You know what I mean? I'm talking to my friends. And so 100% right. I'm a huge proponent of that. I don't believe people, me personally, I don't believe you should be consuming that much content. It's just not. The human brain was built for small small tribes and bands.
Yes.
150 people maximum capacity for the most part.
Yep.
When you start getting into hearing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people share their ideas, no offense, your brain's going to explode.
Yeah, it is too
much. And
much.
On top of it, think about it like this. Let's say 1% of people on planet Earth are complete idiots. What happens in a world full of 100 people, there's only one idiot. 99 really smart people. A world with 1,000 people, 10 idiots. It is what it is. A world filled with 1 billion people, that's 10 million idiots.
Yes.
Complete idiots who are now online, no disrespect to you idiots, who are now online sharing their opinions, sharing their ideas, saying things about you, trying to get you to debate them. Yes. Like they have logic and like they have sense. And that's the world we live in now.
And it's way more than 1% to begin with.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it is. I wish it were only 1%.
Exactly. And so that's what people are interacting with in their comments.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound some really dark Darwinian ideology. So forgive me. But you got to think about it. Like a lot of people wouldn't have survived 1,000 years ago. It's
true. It is true.
No offense, they're lazy. There was no government subsidized housing. There was no welfare. Yeah. If you didn't work, you didn't eat.
Yes.
If you couldn't take care of yourself, you didn't live. You know what I mean? If you couldn't stay healthy, you would die.
Yeah.
The modern world has nerfed life.
Yes.
It has nerfed life in a way that everybody lives, and that's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the bad thing about, not the bad thing, but the negative thing about it is
downside.
Downside.
The downside of all these people living.
The downside is that you have a lot of people who literally are not doing anything.
Yeah.
Who are just simply mad and want to tear down others who are. That's all they want to do. And so you live in a world where people want to find Zubys and fight you all day long. That's their job. Yeah. They're on food stamps, they're on welfare, they have on Section 8 housing, they're not disrespectful, like it's just what they are. And they look for Zubys to fight. Yes. They want to see men who are doing well, who are trying to help people, who have things going for them, who have views that are not contrary to the mainstream narrative, and they want to fight you, they want to shame you, they want to attack you, they want to call you name, they want to tear you down. That's their purpose in life, and that's sad. And so man, I just think I'm from the school of Gary Vee, so I'm not going to demonize social media, but it definitely has created a platform that exposed the worst part of humanity.
Most definitely.
And that's the side of you when no one's looking.
Yeah. And people also forget how new it is. When was the first iPhone invented? 2005? I
think like 5, 6, something like that.
All of this stuff is only 15 years old, man.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, like when did YouTube start? 2005 as well, I think. Right?
Yeah. 2005, yeah.
2005 was the turning point. Smartphones, YouTube, Facebook started 2004, I believe, and then Instagram. Like all these things we're talking about 17 years ago did not exist. And 2003 doesn't sound that long ago. But that was a whole different world. Like that doesn't 2003 doesn't sound long ago to me. That's the weird thing, right? But the world totally has changed. And I often say we're in the biggest social experiment ever right 100%. Now. And we do not know the long-term consequences.
We don't know.
We can speculate, but we don't know. We have no idea. It's
kind of like, dang, I forgot what it was, but there was this drug that was given to children.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Like Europe. And there's a lady in America who said, no, we're not giving these drugs to our kids. And she was like a whistleblower. I think she won a Nobel Peace Prize because of it. And what happened is a couple of years later in Europe, that drug or whatever, that medicine, like created a lot of deformities and illness in children. Because they found out years later. Mm-hmm. But they found out the consequences years later after a lot of these children were damaged.
Yeah. Thalidomide.
Yeah. That's social media. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things we're not going to find out until years later, like, yo, this destroyed a ton of lives. Like I said, it's not bad. It's not going anywhere. We have to learn how to adapt to modern technology. But there's a lot of things that are negatively affecting people that we have no idea what the long-term consequences are.
Real talk. And that's one of the, as a final point, that's one of the things that scares me most about this situation with these ongoing lockdowns and the response and the inability to see people and self-isolation and even the masking, not seeing human faces, not seeing people smiling, laughing, all of that stuff. I'm like, yo, this is a scary experiment, man. Yeah. Like this, I don't know yet, and nobody knows for sure. But I think the consequences of all of that response in the long term are going to be far more dangerous and far more lethal, in fact, than the virus itself was. I think that might already be happening. Like I made a joke yesterday that, you know, children are going to grow up thinking that the mouth and nose are private parts, right? Because you can't go out in public and show your, right? They'll be thinking like, wait, like, why can't you, oh, like this must be something, like everyone covers it up, right? So, how a child's brain works. So just like we remember the age before social media and after, but some people half our age only know social media ever existing. I'm just like, man, I don't know. I often say with the future, I'm really optimistic about some things, but there's some stuff I'm very deeply concerned about, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree 100%, man. And I think all we can do is try to create a better alternative for those who want it.
100%.
You're right. As Jordan Peterson said, life is malevolence and suffering. It's a lot of difficulties, hardships, pains, shortcomings, technological advancements that create technological shortcomings, all type of things that are going on. But we as individuals who realize the problem, who, are aware of this situation, all we can do is do our absolute best to create long-lasting change in people's lives, to help create better content, to create a place of Zion for those who want to be free of this matrix, which we call, modern life. And so I just think, I'm grateful for what you're doing. I'm grateful for what we're doing at the Roommates. And I just think that individuals don't so much focus on what can't be done, focus on what you can be doing today to make a change in the lives of yourself, your family, and the people around you.
Amen. Hafeez Baoku. I think that's a beautiful ending point right there, brother.
Thank you so much, man.
For people who want to check you out and follow you online, where can they find you?
Just go to youtube.com and just type in The Roommates, youtube.com. Just type in The Roommates. You'll see us. We have the couch logos, like burgundy logo. Hit the subscribe button, you know what I mean? And just, check out the content and reach out in any way possible. And so definitely check us out on YouTube.
Most def, check him out. Bro, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. As always, real fun to talk to you, and appreciate the insights.
No problem.
No doubt, man.